Hey, welcome to the Offline Podcast with John Jackson. Hey, show us some love by hitting that like button. We want you to subscribe to our podcast and join our team. So make sure you hit that alert button so you get all the alerts when we do a podcast. Hey, we welcome comments and questions. So visit theofflinepodcast.com to stay connected with us. Today's another beautiful day where I am, and I'm in Cincinnati. The sun's out, and I have done too many leaves, I can tell you that. But we're doing a podcast, and we've got a very special guest. This guest went to the University of Michigan. He was drafted in the 12th round. That's when they had 16 rounds. But he was the 314th pick by the Green Bay Packers. Played in Detroit, played with the Redskins. He was all pro. He's on the greatest Redskins. He's in the top 70. That was issued in 2002. And I want to bring to the podcast Mike Brass. Mike, hey, thanks for joining the podcast. We appreciate you, brother.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure. I thank you for having me.
So tell me, a kid growing up in Michigan, I mean, is it a lifelong dream to go to University of Michigan?
Well, in actuality, I grew up in a little town called Ypsilanti, and I went all over the country looking at schools and ended up going to school 7 miles away at the University of Michigan. And during that period of time, it was different. It was great. Michigan has a tremendous tradition. And once a Michigan man, always a Michigan man.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. I know a couple other Michigan guys, and that's what they always tell me. But Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I played at Michigan with some great football players. John Henderson, who was a receiver with Minnesota. Tom Mack, who was an offensive lineman and in the Hall of Fame. He went to the Rams. My defensive backfield, there was Rick Volk, who played for Baltimore. John Rouser, who played for the Packers, and then he went to the Steelers. And then it was myself, also a linebacker with the 49ers, Frank Nunley. So we had a pretty decent team. We were expected to do a lot better than we did. But as you well know, injuries become the great equalizer.
Right.
Unfortunately, we left before Schembechler got there. They had great success after we left.
So you guys pretty much set the program up, and then those guys come in and take all the credit, huh?
You know how that goes. You know exactly how that goes. They don't remember how you got there, so to speak. But I was lucky. Yeah, you're right. I was 12th round draft choice by the Packers and Coach Lombardi, and who was just an amazing person. Everything that you've ever heard about him was actually true. He was meaner than a junkyard dog, you might say, but and he treated everybody the same, just like dogs.
But see, I can deal with stuff like that because that's a fair coach. He's going to treat everybody like shit, right?
Absolutely. And even though I made it to the last cut, and I got cut the last week when it was too late to be picked up by anybody else. But fortunately, coming back to Michigan, I got picked up by the Lions, and I was there for 2 years. That kept me in the game. I didn't get a chance to play really, but it kept me in the game. And I have to pay tribute to my mother, who said when I was in school, Michael, you ought to get at least a teaching certificate in case you need it. And it's amazing how right mothers are always, and they seem to always know when to say the right things. And if you have any questions follow your ma's suggestions. The hell with your dad for a while. But follow your ma's suggestions.
No, it always comes back. And I think you made a really good choice because your mom was a teacher, right?
Yes, my mom was a teacher. My dad was a doctor. And so we had a sound emphasis on education. And I've got two sisters who both have master's degrees. I've got a nephew who is the son of my youngest sister, who is an pediatric surgeon at Cedars-Sinai in LA.
Wow.
So, and then my two daughters, Kimberly and Louise, one is in Minneapolis, the other is in Orlando. They both have their master's degrees. So when we all get together, they call me the dummy in the family since I only have a BA. So, but I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Hey, so tell me about your days with the Redskins. I know you played in Super Bowl VII, and I want you to tell me that story.
Well, I was lucky because when Coach Lombardi decided he wanted to come out of retirement, he retired for a year, and then he came out of retirement and he came to Washington, and he asked me to come to Washington, and that was a personal request, and I couldn't get away from Detroit fast enough because I wasn't going anywhere there, and I like to laugh about it and say that Coach Lombardi saw something in me that the Lions didn't see. And so I was able to get out of Detroit, thank God, and get away from 40 years of losing and go to Washington. And after a couple of weeks in training camp, he put me in as a starter. And he had always said, even when I was with Green Bay, that kept me going, he would say, Mike, you can play in this league. And that always stuck with me and actually kept me wanting to play football because I obviously get paid to play a game that you love, you want to play as long as you possibly can. But he put me in as a starter, and I played 104 straight games.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he passed away after that first year, and we had in that year that he was sick, we had a poor season. But then the Redskins brought in George Allen from the Rams, and George was just as great as Coach Lombardi, and it was George who hated rookies. He traded 100 draft choices to get a veteran player.
Is that right?
Traded draft choices that he didn't have just to get a veteran player. It was his feeling that let somebody else train them for 5 years. They're no good to anybody until they've been in the league 5 years. And so we had a bunch of old fellas, but it was both Coach Lombardi and George Allen who believed in the team concept. And with George, he believed in the team concept specifically relating to defense. We often laugh that he would say, okay, offense, go on in there and hold them. And the defense would come in and win the games. It was that kind of atmosphere. And because of his defenses, which were complicated, you needed a veteran player who did not get riled, who had discipline, good basic skills, and knew, as it relates to a defensive back, where your help was coming from. And I played on the right side. Pat Fisher was the cornerback on the left side. Greg Owens was a safety. And Kenny Houston was the other safety. Kenny's in the Hall of Fame. And on my
I
side,
know Kenny. Yeah.
yeah, on my side, Chris Hamburger was a linebacker on my side. And so it was such that every one of these older players, and I considered myself one of the youngest of the older ones, we did a lot of studying. It took us probably an hour to run a 100-yard dash, but that's okay because we played together and we knew where our help was coming from.
Right.
And if you're going to be a defensive back and a decent defensive back, you can't cover everybody everywhere. And so you learned based on the defense where your help was coming from, and you played the odds. And it's amazing after 5 years how the game slows down. And it does slow down. And there is real benefit in experience. And that's what George believed in, experience. And the worst thing you can do as a player, whether it's an offensive player or a defensive player, is make mental mistakes. And you don't get mental mistakes when you get veteran players. And that's what he wanted. And I played, too, with offensive players that were just great. Billy Kilmer, Sonny Jurgensen, Charlie Taylor, Roy Jefferson, Jerry Smith. These guys were just real pros. And you can appreciate a guy who's been there 6, 7, 8, 10 years.
Right.
Because you end up knowing each other. And I think about things like that as a defensive back as I watch how kids are playing now. And they are better athletes. They're quicker, they're bigger, and so forth. But there are some things lacking. And every now and then I'll point those things out when I'm asked. Because a lot of people don't like or have trouble taking.
Well, what would be one of those things? I mean, definitely. I see a lot of offensive linemen that have really poor technique, and when they get them to the NFL, they still have really poor technique. I mean, are you talking technique wise, or are you talking just not being in the right position?
I'm talking about a combination of those things. That is, you need to know who your opponent is going to be, what that opponent likes to do, what that opponent doesn't like to do, down in distance. All of those things come into play. But as a defensive back, the biggest mistake I see is that they want to think about getting interceptions. And that means that they look into the backfield. And the minute they look in the backfield, they're susceptible to a double move. And you see that time and time and time again. And we had the old phrase that linemen and linebackers make 6-yard mistakes, but defensive backs make 6-point mistakes. And so our philosophy was to bend and not break, because it's tough for an offensive team to go 60, 70, 80 yards without making a mistake. And that's what you count on as a defensive back. You have to make the assumption that the quarterback is going to put that ball perfectly where he wants to put it. But if you've got a coordination with the defensive line, with their hands up, the linebackers are going to their spots so that you don't have to cover somebody all over the field. And as a cornerback, you use that 12th player, which is the sidelines. You know exactly where the holes are that the quarterback has to throw the ball in, because you're also checking what they call flare control. And with our defensive team, we could change defenses even after the ball was snapped, because we'd played together so long that we knew the voice of the captain for that particular play. And you can imagine a rookie can't do that. A rookie cannot do that. And and I like to say I wasn't the greatest of defensive backs, but I pride myself in never making a mental mistake and always being ready to play by knowing what that receiver wants to do and what that quarterback wants to do. So at the snap of the ball, I take a quick peek to see what the onside running back is doing and see what the center and the tackle on my side was doing. And I could tell run or pass, and based on what that running back did, I could tell whether the wide receiver was going to be going inside or outside or deep middle or what have you. So rookies can't do that. I have to admit, rookies just can't do that. Sooner or later, they might get there. But
yeah, I mean, that's based off experience, right? Because I know as an offensive lineman, when I came in, I mean, there were certain things that I knew I couldn't do until I got to probably year 4 and 5. And then after that, I was like, okay, I've been waiting all this time. And it's kind of like that simple because because you don't really focus on like the little things as far as the technique and positioning. And because when you come to the league, you're just like happy to be there. Yeah. And all of a sudden you can't be that happy to be there if you're not a high draft pick. And I was like a 10th round draft pick, and I'm like, you gotta learn this game and quit.
That's exactly right. You are exactly right. Unfortunately, a lot of the fans can't appreciate the subtleties that go into the game, the angles that you learn if you're an offensive lineman, or and you know what your quarterback likes to do if that defensive end or that tackle is getting close to him. With the tackle, I know you try to ride that defensive end outside so that quarterback can step up and still make that throw. It's a lot of subtleties, but it's the greatest game in the world, the greatest team sport in the world. And if I had it to do over again, I probably would do it again, although I'd have second thoughts because we never made any money.
Mike, you just came in the wrong era. That's all. You came in the wrong era. Hey, Mike, we're going to do a segment called First Down, and this is like your first. Okay. What was your first biggest play? It might be interception. It might be stopping them for yards. But what would you consider your biggest play?
My biggest play, and the one that I remember, I almost got knocked out, but it was tackling Calvin Hill on a sweep on a Monday night game, and I hit him just where I wanted to, although he hit me where I didn't want him to hit me, and he got the brunt of that. But I can think of a couple of other plays. I was lucky. I scored a couple of touchdowns on interceptions, but those came as a result of just the philosophy. Bob Hayes was one of those guys that wasn't too difficult for me to cover him because I didn't have to cover him everywhere. Everybody remembers though the Super Bowl game in which the Dolphins went undefeated, and they remember Garo Yepremian's attempted pass, which was really a fumble, but I'm the one who caught it and ran it back. But they've been playing that damn play for 50 years, and I haven't made 10 cents off it.
Now, is that a shame that you have not made any money off of that?
I have not made a 10 cents off of that play, and they play it every year. And that's one of the fallacies of the player contract, the standard player contract. They own you for life, and they own your likeness, and they own this for life. But again, I would have signed anything just to get a chance to play. And I was lucky to stay in the league for 10 years. An injury forced me out, but again, I beat the odds. I beat the odds because as a defensive back, I wasn't really a Lombardi, or I wasn't a Prime Time or Charles Woodson, but I knew the game. I studied the game. And every good football player, you don't have to be the greatest athlete if you know where your help is coming from.
Right.
And you know that you're not going to make mental mistakes, and you know how to let that guard who has to kick you out on a sweep not hit you, you're going to be around a while. You're going to be around a while. And we prided ourselves on that. But I played with some great players.
Right. So what was one of the nastiest guards that you ever faced? And you knew that, when that guy came around that corner and he hit that secondary, that it's either get the hell out of the way or get down on the ground.
Gene Upshaw. Gene Upshaw. Gene Upshaw. Now, there are some dirty players like Conrad Dobler, but Gene Upshaw, you always knew he was huffing and puffing. And
he had
just lit up.
Those forearm pads on, so you're going to get jacked up, right?
Yeah, but they didn't like it when you dove at their legs. You have to keep in mind that when you're a cornerback, your main goal on a sweep is turn that play inside so that the pursuit could get there. So if you cut down that angle so that that running back has to turn it up because you're sitting there, then it gives your defensive team really a chance to get there. And it's little things like that.
So, we're being veterans, you're always taught those little things. But, when rookies come in, and I see it still today, they have no clue what they're getting themselves into. No. And it's just like, if you told them before, they probably wouldn't come. But and that's what I tell people. If I told you what we really do, you're not going to go there. You're not going to go there. But once you get there, you figure, hell, I might as well stay if they're going to pay me, right?
Yeah.
I might as well stay. They're going to pay me. I'll do what it takes.
And it's amazing how that when the rookies come in, they're either afraid or they're overconfident and think that they are better than they really are. And it takes a veteran in the wily ways of a veteran to put them in their place. You're in the big leagues, so to speak, now, and they don't play games here, and the game is twice as fast as when you were in college.
Right.
When you went to college, you had a lot of high school All-Americans there. But now when you get to the pros, you've got the All-Americans, and that makes a difference. And it took me 5 years to learn that position.
So what was one of those sayings as far as one of the wily vets that would say? Because I know for us, it was like we would tell the rookies, now listen, you're going against a grown-ass man. You better buckle up. You better buckle up. You better buckle up, son. Yeah.
Well, with the defensive back, we always told them, you're a defensive back. You're getting paid to stop passes, and in particular, don't give up touchdowns. Plain and simple. You can always come up and make the tackle. And if you're making an interception, it's because of the overall defense, not particularly because of you.
Right.
It takes a quarterback that is offline on a throw. One of the things I've always told the young defensive backs, you're going to get beat. Show me a defensive back who hasn't gotten beat, and I'll show you a defensive back that's sitting their ass on the bench. Every defensive back gets beat. The point is, understand why you got beat, how you got beat, and how you can correct it in the next game. And one of the things that I learned was that the quarterback has only a certain amount of time to throw the ball. You can catch a glimpse of what that onside back is doing and what that tight end might be doing on your side. That gives you a little bit of an edge. And if you then know where your help is coming from, that gives you a greater edge. So that at a point in time that the receiver has to make a break.
Right.
You make a break when that receiver makes a break, your angle in responding to that break is very, very important. If you're looking to undercut the ball to make an interception, you're going to get beat every time. But if you take 2 steps on the same level that receiver is taking, if he makes a double move, he's got to run through you. And I became very adept at stepping in front of Bob Hayes or Mel Gray, who were the fastest people I ever saw. And I may have run a 4.4, 4.3 maybe on a good day. But that's how you cover people like that. Same thing with Paul Warfield, who was as smooth a receiver as you will ever find.
Right.
I mean, just a fantastic receiver. But they can be covered if indeed you know what you're doing.
Right. So me and you have something in common. And you know what that is? We both went to the Super Bowl and we lost.
Yeah.
And you know, that's kind of like a hard pill to swallow, because it took me probably, I want to say 6 or 7 years. It might have been when I retired in 2001 and I played in Super Bowl 30, and that was in the 95 season. I never watched a game after we lost. And people were like, did you see the game? I'm like, no, that's not a good feeling. You know, to get to that top, you know, you can't get any, higher than that, but not to stand on that mountain and be king for a day, that was tough. That was tough. And
especially
you were the only person that scored. You were the only person that scored in that game. Yeah, for the Redskins. Yeah. So tell me something about that.
Well, nobody ever remembers who finished second, quite frankly, especially even in the Super Bowl. We were favored to win that game. And again, egos play an important part. We had a veteran football team, one of the best running backs in the league, Larry Brown, great receivers in Charlie Taylor and Roy Jefferson. We should not have been in that position, but we went in at halftime, and the veteran offensive linemen tried to tell the coaches what should be done, what changes should be done. But the offensive coaches, made the decision that we were going to stick to our game plan. But really, the coaches are not out there playing.
No.
They had a defensive tackle, Manny Fernandez, who was just too quick for our center, who was just a great center, but he was just too quick. So adjustments had to be made, and they didn't make the adjustments at halftime. We kept the team to 14 points. You keep a team to 14 points, you're supposed to win. You're supposed to win.
Or at least put yourself in a position to win. Definitely if you're not listening to the players. And that's what that was the big thing in Pittsburgh. We would always come back over, and our offensive line coach would say, hey, what are they doing out there? What do we need to do? And they would take that feedback to the coach. And if it was one particular play that we needed to run that we did pretty well on, it's like, hey, we need to go back to that more than once. So I remember playing against Cleveland, and we literally ran the same play 3 times on the left and 3 times on the right. And Eric Green was a tight end, and he told him, he says, listen, hey, we coming over here. Listen, I mean, come on, hey, we coming over here. Every time we went to the line of scrimmage, I looked at him and I go, are you crazy? He goes, they can't stop it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And that's and I took out of that like, you know what? If all us are on the offense are on the same page, they can't stop us. There's no way they can stop us.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And that's the real benefit of having a coach like George Allen generally. But he preferred the defense to the offense, quite frankly. And our defense was tight. But he respected the defensive players. Hell, we were almost as old as him, and and he allowed the defense to make these adjustments on our own. But for some reason or another, the offensive coaches, particularly the line coaches, one was, I don't want to name the coaches, but they did not listen to our offensive linemen. And every good football team builds from the inside out. Mm-hmm. Offensive line, defensive line. Then running backs, linebackers. And then quarterback and so forth. A great quarterback is nothing if he doesn't have a good offensive line.
No,
and that back that picks up those blitzes, and that's where experience comes in. And you don't learn that by reading a book. You learn that by getting your ass kicked every now and then, to the point where you say, "Something's not right, and it must be me."
Right. You've kind of been in that position. You've been in that position. Mm-hmm. So now you understand. It's like, you know what? I don't like this position. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So I got to ask you about your movie career. Okay.
Oh, boy,
so tell me who Captain Quinn is.
I'm going to tell you something.
I was looking at this yesterday. And I was like cracking up. I was like, he's Captain Michael. He's Captain Quinn. And I'm like,
well, football teams are made up of friends. Mm-hmm. And if your friends ask you to do them a favor, then you try to help them out.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in this instance, Roy Jefferson, who was with Pittsburgh for a while and came to the Redskins, he and I are great friends. Mm-hmm. He said, "Mike, I'm in this movie, Brotherhood of Death, and I want you to come and be in this movie." Mm-hmm. And so I said, "Oh, okay, Roy, okay." So I went to one shooting. Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, I can't do this. My reputation would be destroyed, and it would be somebody, like a Jackson fellow who will bring up something 50 years later and remind me of that situation." And it was so ironic that here we are in the jungles of Vietnam, and there's an ice cream truck riding by in the background. So it's something I'd like to forget.
Okay. So tell me, what was it like living in Freeport, Bahamas for 18 years?
Well, when I left the Redskins, before I had been to the Bahamas, and in particular Freeport, I had been going there to train prior to each football season. And during one of those years, I bought a small resort there. And when I retired, I moved there, and I was there for 18 years. Mm-hmm. My biggest worry was what color shorts I was going to put on in the morning. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I coached football there, and these kids were so enamored with professional football and football in general. Mm-hmm. But they had not had coaches per se. They were learning things from somebody who had seen something on TV or seen something, read a book or something. And so when I got there, I wanted to still be involved with football, because I left football because of an injury, and it was still in my blood. So if I had the opportunity to provide some additional knowledge, then I certainly was interested, and it kind of endeared me to the community as well. A lot of times people go to a foreign country and they remain a foreigner, and they don't get involved in the local community. And there are a lot of things that a foreigner can bring to a particular community. But obviously I enjoyed it. I was there for 18 years. I would not have come back had it not been the fact that I had two daughters who had never lived in the U.S. And I hated to leave, but I wanted them to enjoy the U.S. experience of going to school, and it's paid off for them. But believe me, football and Grand Bahama Island, the Bahamas, it was just a great part of my life, just a great, great part of my life. And I still have an awful lot of friends who still reside there, and they still call me coach, and they find my name on Facebook or something, and they'll mention something. It was an enjoyable experience. Really,
right. I mean, how great is that when you made a difference in somebody's life, and all of a sudden, let's say 5 or 6 years later, they just send you a note and say, just say hello. I mean, that's just awesome, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you well know that just the game of football and all that's involved makes a big difference on how you actually run your life.
Mm-hmm.
The discipline that's involved, the loyalty, the camaraderie, the dependence on each other.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You probably get more from a teammate saying "great job" than getting paid that extra money for making a big hit, because we had incentives too.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a big difference, and especially with Coach Allen or Coach Lombardi. Getting Coach Lombardi to say, "You did a great job, Mike. You do everything that you can to get that kind of response," or to hear George Allen say, "Our DBs are among the best in the league." And you want that kind of praise. So it comes from that inner circle. Now, I can't say that for the actual organizations because none of us have strong feelings for organizations, because you're only as good as the last game that you played. And
I understand
they will cut you in a minute if you're not.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
Not producing. That's just a part of the game. That's just a part of the game.
Yeah, Mike, can you hold on 1 second here?
Sure.
Hey, listen, I've got a great place for you to go smoke a cigar. It's called Bell's House of Tobacco. I've been going to Bell's House of Tobacco for 20 years. And John Bell, really good guy. So he will give you great knowledge on cigars, and you will not get a bad cigar at Bell's, I promise you. So go to Bell's House Tobacco. The information right here is how to get in contact with him, and tell him that you watch this podcast. So he knows that I'm pumping his store up. So go to Bell's House Tobacco, get a great cigar. Thanks. Yeah, that's a good friend of mine who I've known since I came back to Cincinnati. I've been here over 20 years, and just great people. Almost to me, he's like family.
I have two fellows that I played ball with at Michigan, Mel Anthony and Carl Ward. They're both from Cincinnati. I spoke to Carl just yesterday.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you have any, was anybody at Michigan during that time from Cincinnati or from Ohio?
Well, both of them were.
Okay.
Ward,
So they were the school. Okay.
Yeah, they grew up in Cincinnati. Carl Ward and Mel Anthony. They were both running backs.
Really?
And they're still there in Cincinnati. Still there.
It's a nice place to come, but we try not to tell too many people because we don't want it to get too crowded.
Yeah.
It's a nice place to raise a family or have grandkids here. I've had a chance to move to different places, but I'll always come back to Cincinnati because that's where I grew up. Hey, so tell me about your days at the University of Florida as an academic counselor.
Well, when I came back to the U.S., as I said, I came back because my girls had never lived in the U.S. before, and I still had businesses in the Bahamas, so I wanted to be in a place that I could get back and forth. And I had talked to my sister, my youngest sister, who had done some shows on Broadway, and she had been in a traveling show that was here in Gainesville, Florida, and had been for a couple of years. And Gainesville is a lot like Ann Arbor. It's a college town.
Right.
And I enjoy college towns. It's a small, big town, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the college atmosphere and appreciated that. And so when I came back, my degree's in psych, actually education with a psych major. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to get a position at the University of Florida as an academic counselor, and I ran a tutoring program. I was there for 5 years. And I was here when Steve Spurrier was the coach. And during a lot of those great teams that he had,
right.
He was a Heisman Trophy winner. He and I came out of college the same year. He went to the 49ers. And of course, I went to Green Bay. And all of us kind of know each other if you're playing in that same era.
Right.
And so I was an academic counselor, and that was really a great experience, really, being in academia. But again, the politics of that are just like the politics anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So I was there for 5 years, but having never worked for anybody else other than coaches, football coaches, after 5 years, I had had enough, and I retired and actually got back into those areas that I am interested in and still are doing something in now. And in particular, the real estate field. I'm not a broker or anything, but I help solve real estate related problems. And I do a lot of marketing of internet products on the internet. And so it keeps me busy.
Right. So that's Kim Lou Global, right?
That's right. Kim Lou Global is named after my two daughters, Kimberly and Louise. I established that the year after I retired from the University of Florida. And it's been quite rewarding. I don't make enough money, but then who does? I wish the hell the owners in the National Football League would appreciate what we did for them. But that's just the way the things go. I'm not satisfied, never would be satisfied.
Right.
But then all of us who are pre-1994s or 93ers, we don't have very good things to say in that regard. So
I don't. But Mike, I appreciate you though, because the things you guys did, especially I came in '88, so I was one of those pre-2, and it really didn't get better. The health insurance and stuff like that didn't get better until after, I want to say 92, 93. Yeah, 93.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we were paying some crazy. I mean, I used to tell people what the deductible was. It was a $5,000 deductible for a family. And I'm like, they're like, you're making that much? I'm like, no, I'm not making that much. Not for $5,000 deductible. Right. Yeah. But I do want to thank you guys for, carving that path for us. And I hope they do something for the older players. Because it's crazy. If you don't remember where you came from, how are you going to go in the direction you want to go?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And we went on strike 3 times. And we had the support of our coaches. Coach Lombardi would not let us cross the picket line because that would the team. And that is what makes successful football teams. Every guy pulling and being happy for the other guy's success. And going on strike, we paid for it because the owners cut us out of all the benefits that the kids are getting now after 1993, 94. we got cut out because we were the Mavericks. We were the ones that gave them a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
And what goes around comes around. Let me put it that way.
It does. It does. So tell me, what would be, if you were talking to a young player of today, what would be the best advice you would give him, especially playing your position?
The first thing would be, once you're in the league, get ready to get out of the league. Get
Mm-hmm.
yourself ready. If it means finishing your education, get yourself ready to get out of the league. The next thing is spend time knowing your position and the position of those around you that you depend on.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two major things, so that you're not, in particular, knowing your position, knowing it so that you're not going to make a mental error. You can make physical mistakes. Some guy could be quicker and faster, but making mental errors, those are unacceptable. And finally, appreciate your success, but recognize that you didn't do it alone.
Right.
You're standing on the shoulders of someone else who's come before you,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the person that you beat out or the person that got hurt that gave you that opportunity. I always define luck as being when preparation meets opportunity. That's luck. And live by those things. How you carry yourself now is how you're going to carry yourself 20 years from now, when the spotlight is gone and you're just another person that is sitting on the earth. So you've got to make sure you're ready, and that means again preparing to get out the minute you're in, because you could twist your ankle stepping off the curb, and you're gone. You're gone. You're only as good as your last game, and the only people who are going to care about you are your teammates, as long as you're not making mistakes. But your organization, they don't care about you. They really don't. It's next man up, always with them. Always with them.
So, Mike, we're going to close on a couple different stories. So, tell me a funny story your rookie year about what happened to you.
Okay.
Because I know that there's always a funny story that happens to rookies.
Well, it was when I was with the Packers and legendary Coach Lombardi. And I remember Coach Lombardi, we were going to practice one day, and it was just raining like mad. And we had to walk about 300 yards from the locker room to the practice field. And it was just coming down in buckets. And it was lightning all over the place. And Coach Lombardi used to have a driver who would drive him those 400 yards or so. And we were, once you got to the field, you had to circle that field to kind of warm up. And each time we made a round, the thunder and lightning actually just poured out. And we were wondering, what in the hell are we going to do with this crap going on? And everybody was waiting for Coach Lombardi to step out of his car. He stepped out of his car. We knew he was going to call practice off. And he looked up at the sky and he did something like this, and the rain stopped. The rain stopped, the sun came out, and it was like nothing had ever happened before. And that made us all believers of Coach Vince Lombardi.
That is a great story. That's a great story. Hey, so I've got one. My rookie year, they did and it's coming close to Thanksgiving, so that's why I was thinking about this. So they made the rookies. They told the rookies that they had turkeys at the nearest grocery store. So it's like, just go pick a turkey up, Brooke. And I'll never forget, this one rookie goes there, and he went off on the manager. He goes, I want my freaking turkey. You know, I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler. The guy goes, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers, you can buy your own turkey. We don't need to give you one for free. We don't need to give you one for free. But so they videotaped him. The whole conversation. And we go back like the next day, and on the video is this guy going in the store and cussing out this manager. And it was, I mean, how that team, everybody's like, you know, egging him like, are you serious? Mm-hmm. You in the grocery store and act like this over a freaking turkey? Come on. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. But what I always loved about the guys, and like you said, the camaraderie and the loyalty towards the guys. I mean, just like me doing this podcast, I mean, I've always had a great relationship with all the guys I played with. Mm-hmm. And I can call up anybody and they say, hey, you know, I need you to do a podcast. How long is it going to be? That's all I want to know. How long is it going to be? What time? That's it. But I appreciate you doing this too. You know, it's always amazing to hear God's story who played before me, because it just makes me appreciate, you know, what the NFL was when I was there. Because without you, I don't get there. I don't get there. And I tell people that.
I really appreciate your asking me, quite frankly. As we get a little older, we're glad to be above the dirt, of course. And we appreciate the fact that there might be people who might be interested in how it used to be or what it was like. And let's face it, all of us are going to get a little bit older. We just happened to, as I said, we played a game that we got paid for, and so we were able to do it far after high school. And during that period of time, we met great people who were great athletes who thought the way we thought in terms of winning football. And there is nothing more appreciated than winning a football game.
Right.
Everybody comes together to make that contribution. It's the ultimate sport in which every position is dependent on some other position as well. And
right.
So I was lucky. I was glad to be there.
And I think that people fail to realize it's hard winning a football game.
Oh, yeah.
It is so hard to win a football game. And when you're got a group of guys that are consistent, you kind of want to keep them together as long as you can.
That's right.
But every once in a while, a couple of them leave, and you kind of want to replug them back in there. And that's tough because that camaraderie is, I mean, it's kind of like a fine line. Once you lose it, then it's kind of like a rebuild. It's like a rebuild. It just doesn't come instant. I mean, it just takes a little more time.
Yeah.
But Mike, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast, and let's keep in touch because I like the stories, and I'll tell you some stories off the podcast that I can't tell on the podcast. Okay. And I guarantee you'll laugh too. But definitely appreciate you, and have a great holiday, and stay safe with all this crazy stuff that's going on with this COVID. Stay safe. And tell your wife, thank you for making sure you put a shirt on. I appreciate that. And God bless you. And have a great holiday.
Good luck to you. Take care. Stay healthy, man.
Thank you. Okay. It's good to see you, Mike. Appreciate it. Hey, thank you for joining the podcast. And we want to make sure that, you subscribe and join our team. So show us some love by hitting that like button again. And please send some questions and comments. Go to theofflinepodcast.com, and believe it or not, we will answer the questions and tell the questions on the podcast. So I want to thank Mike Bass for being a great guest, and everybody out there, just be safe, and we'll see you in another time. Thanks.